Have you ever been in a situation where you said yes to something, but on reflection and in hindsight, you should have said no? Perhaps you know you were doing it at the time out of obligation or people pleasing or feeling uncomfortable saying no to them, or perhaps you didn't even realize that that's what you were doing at the time, and it was only afterwards or a few days later that you felt a bit icky or uncomfortable about the experience. This is what is called overriding your own embodied consent. When we say yes to something when really our mind or our body is saying no. And it is a really, really important skill to learn in life, outside the bedroom, but especially inside the bedroom. And in my experience, a lot of partners are not very good at saying no to each other because we want to make our partner happy. We don't want to make them feel rejected. We don't want to feel guilty or that we're letting the side down. But this is probably one of the most important skills that I teach in the entirety of Pillow Play, because when we are able to say no to each other and hear it with love and respect and maintain the connection rather than disconnect, that is when we are able to open up the possibilities in our sex life and have much more explorative, fun and pressure-free sex. So how do we do this? How do we listen to our own embodied consent? Well, first we start just by slowing down and by paying attention to what the body is feeling and the signals that our body is sending us. This is what is called embodiment. And again, in society, we're not very good at it. We pay attention too much to what our mind is telling us and not enough attention on what our body is telling us. So first, imagine that someone is making a request of you. For example, can I have a hug? There might be certain people where your mind instantly goes, yes, and your body instantly feels that yes as well. This is what I call your green light. You feel comfortable, you feel happy, it's an enthusiastic green in your mind and in your body. At other times, if someone said to you, can I have a hug? It might be someone you don't know as well, or perhaps you're not a hugger, or you're really hot and uncomfortable, or you're in the middle of a fight and physical touch is the last thing you want. And again, it's that slowing down and going, do I want that hug? Your mind's first reaction might be, sure, yeah, out of habit, out of a knee-jerk reaction, out of muscle memory, obligation, people-pleasing. But if you pause and stop and take a moment, you'll probably feel that resistance. It might be in your heart rate, it might be in your breathing, it might be that your body language changes and you become more sort of hunched up and uncomfortable. So being able to stop and listen before answering is really a big part of embodiment and embodied consent. And if you're just learning this, it's helpful to understand what you do when you sort of feel an orange. So if you think green is the enthusiastic yes, orange is the I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I want this thing or not. And a lot of people, when they feel that orange, they feel that maybe, they default to yes. You might hear them go, yes? And make it sound like a question. Do you want a hug? Yeah. Do you want to go to the party tonight? Yeah. It's often because they're feeling a maybe and they don't know how to express that. So if this is you, if this is sounding familiar, it might be helpful to default to a no rather than defaulting to a yes, because you can always change your mind. That's the wonderful thing about consent, is it changes from one moment to the next. So if you're not sure, if you're not a big green enthusiastic yes, and you're feeling a maybe, default to no. And that's what the yes, no, maybe game is all about practicing in just a second. And sometimes when we take that pause and we check in with our body, we might realize that our first instinct was to say yes to that hug, but once we've checked in, we can actually tell it's a really clear red light. It is a no. I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I don't want that. That is not something my body wants. And so that's when we learn how to express our no with love and eye contact, and it doesn't need to be about enforcing that boundary with aggression. No, it's okay to be able to say no and still maintain that connection. Often when someone feels the need to sort of enforce the no with aggression and enforce their boundary, it's because they've actually been allowing things to encroach on their boundaries, overriding their own embodied consent, and then finally they've had enough and they feel like they need to sort of enforce it. But actually, if we're better at listening to what those boundaries are and expressing them all of the time, that's when no never needs to be a moment of disconnection. It can be a, no, I'm not in the mood for that, but I would love to do XYZ, and leaning forward instead of away when you hear a no. It is such an important skill outside the bedroom, as I said, but also inside the bedroom. So I'm excited for you to practice it in the game in just a second. So I've talked a lot about this idea of listening to your own body, embodiment, and thinking of it as a bit of a traffic light. Green being your comfort zone and everything feeling happy, connected, safe, fun. Orange being I'm approaching the edge of my comfort zone. I'm not really sure. I can hang out here for a little while, and that's often where I learn new things, and it's often really exciting. But you don't want to hang out there for too long because you might become dysregulated and anxious and uncomfortable. And red is I'm outside of my comfort zone and I need to work out how to bring myself back to safety. These are really helpful. It's a really helpful framework when it comes to understanding your own consent, but also checking in with your partner to understand how they're feeling, what they're enjoying. You can also use them as safe words, which I talk a little bit more about in a later game, which is called the traffic light game. So you might be thinking, this doesn't feel very sexy, hearing a no, saying a no. Isn't pillow play supposed to be all about trying new things and getting curious and being open-minded to newness? Yes, it absolutely is, which is why we start here, because the power of the no is huge. What it actually allows us to do is it allows us to trust not only ourselves, that we have the ability to listen to and voice our own consent, but really importantly, it also allows us to trust our partners. Knowing that if we suggest something to them, a new idea, a new fantasy, a new game to play, when we hear yes, we trust that that is a big green light, that that is an enthusiastic yes. They are not accidentally saying yes because they don't know how to say their no, or they're feeling orange and they don't know how to voice it. Both of you will feel so much more comfortable, so much more at ease, and so much more connected once you have played this game and you know that you can say yes, no, maybe, negotiate all of that beautiful middle ground without any fear of rejection or disconnection or some form of punishment or repercussions for saying no. It will all be celebrated in your relationship. We will talk more about initiating sex and how to turn each other on and libido and all things like that in Game 3, the Brakes and Accelerator quiz. But first, I think while we're talking about responding and your yes, no's and maybes, I just want to say that there are more than just two options when someone initiates sex. Often people see initiation as this really pressure-filled moment where they either have to be in the mood and say yes, or they have to say no and they're worried that it will disconnect the moment. But actually, that's not the way desire works. Often desire needs to be triggered. People are not yet in the mood, but they want to be. They want to want sex. And this is all about the grey area in between the enthusiastic, yes, let's do it, we're both in the mood, and the no. And those grey areas in between, it's helpful to think of your options when someone initiates as 4 different options. Number 1, yes, I want it, I'm in the mood as well, great, let's do the thing. 2, I'm not in the mood yet, but I want to be. This is essentially about working out what do I need to help me get in the mood and putting some suggestions out there for what will work for you. More of this in game number 3. Option 4 is, I'm not in the mood for sex, and to be honest, I'm not open to triggering my desire for sex, to seeing where it leads, but I'm definitely open to you being sexual and I'll be here with you. So this could be things like mutual masturbation or your partner self-pleasuring and you're there with them whispering dirty talk into their ears. More on that in game 5. Or the 4th option is, no, I'm not in the mood. I'm not open to it building. I'm not even able to hold space for you while you're sexual, but I promise in the future I will initiate some form of intimacy. And that could be scheduling time for a pillow play game, it could be scheduling time for intimacy or a date night, but making sure that you're also reciprocating Intimacy so that both of your needs feel important and matter to both of you.